So let's talk some more about this whole story. Joining us, Reince Priebus, who, by the way, is a former Wisconsin state chairman, as well as national Republican chairman and White House chief of staff, and Fox News political analyst, and Mollie Hemingway, Fox News contributor. Welcome to both of you. Mollie, start with you. I just love this story. The Democratic Socialists speak for the working class, but there's no working class people in the Democratic Socialists. I mean, don't you find that ironic?
Well, for so many decades, I think people did think of the Democratic Party as the party of the working class, the Republican Party as the party of the fancy elites. That is simply not true anymore. When you look at studies, the Republican Party has become a multiracial, multi-ethnic, working class party, and Democrats have become increasingly the party of elites. We also see that a lot of the people who are the base of the Democratic Socialist vote are highly educated white people with low career prospects. But it is also true, Larry, that the Republican Party needs to not take these voters for granted. It is true that Donald Trump totally transformed the party and brought them in. But in midterm elections, that really comes down to enthusiasm. And that's a particular issue for Republicans, given that Democrats do such a better job of ballot chasing. And what is the motivation that Michigan voters or other voters have to do that hard work of coming out and voting when they are not seeing much being done by the United States Senate or even when they wish more were being done by the Republican Party in general on these economic issues?
Yeah, Reince, you've heard me. Mollie is saying it. She's right. You've heard me say this. The GOP can whip up a frenzy on communism and socialism, and I think it's going to be effective. And I think these crazy people are big targets and political gifts, but it may not be the only story. And that's why I kept pushing, for a Republican budget that actually cut taxes for working folks. There's plenty they could do. There's a poll up by John McLaughlin. I don't know. We can see if we can show it. We were going to show it later in the show. That shows 60% want to see indexing of capital gains because they don't want to pay the Biden inflation tax, stuff like that. Homeowners should get a bigger break on capital gains. Maybe we should have tax credits for working folks or tax credits for overtime. Expand on the one big beautiful bill. That's the part that I mean, look, the comrades are going to, there's the McLaughlin poll, and you can see how favorable the indexation of capital gains is. But, I get this, Comrade El Sayed, I think he's a dead loser in Michigan. Absolutely, no question about it. But the fact is, you could do more. Mollie's right. I've been trying to get this point across unsuccessfully, Reince.
Well, I mean, part of the problem is the Democrats make it so easy, too, though. I mean, when you've got candidates running around Wisconsin talking about transgender rights, talking about not funding immigration enforcement, defunding the police. I mean, this is not fantasy. This is what Hong is talking about and what she has said. Now, it makes it a lot easier to say, do you want this or do you want... do you want your taxes to remain low? Do you want your ability to not get taxed on tips, your ability to not get taxed on qualified overtime? I mean, all the things that Trump has already done. I mean, one of the challenges with the tax bill that was passed, it was extending the tax cut that was already there. So you have a hard time understanding how you're better off by not paying any more tax than you've already been paying. But the reality is that you're very much, all of you are correct. In 2024, this is just a statistical fact, there was only 3 places that the Democrats did better than they did in 2020, with 3 demographic groups. Number 1 was non-religious people. Number 2 were people that made over $150,000 a year, and number 3 were people that had advanced degrees.
Yes. So
this isn't something new. This is going to be a close election. Here's the other problem. In a place like Wisconsin, you have 48% of the American, or the people in Wisconsin, they don't like Trump. 48% love Trump. There's only 4% in the middle. So the question is that 4% in the middle, what is going to make them move? And in 2010, when Scott Walker won for the first time, remember, we had everything going for us. We had the Tea Party movement. Obama was in the ditch over what he was doing with Obamacare and porculus and all that. Scott only won by 124,000 votes. He got 52% of the vote in a perfect environment. I'm not one of these people that think that Hong is going to be easy to beat. I don't think El Said's going to be easy to beat. I think it's middle finger politics. And what these guys are really doing is they're giving people a vehicle in their party to say, screw Washington, these Democrats don't do anything. They make a lot of promises. It's not as much of what they're saying. It's about how do they make someone feel.
Well, I just think, though, it's important. The socialists speak for the working class, but they don't speak for the working class. They don't share their values. No. You know, Mollie, let's come back to you. Let you finish this off. Mr. Trump speaks for the working class. He speaks to them and for them, particularly on cultural issues such as these that we discussed here, defunding the cops, defunding ICE, transgender rights, and stuff like that. And he also speaks on tax cuts. The Democrats, all these socialists are going to jack up taxes. They say millionaires, it's going to wind up on the middle class because it's the middle class that pays the taxes. So my point is, A, I agree with you. We should get some action in the Senate and the House, but the Senate seems to be the laggard. And B, Republicans should not just take it for granted that socialism and communism is going to turn the tide. They've got to have a more optimistic, positive vision, Mollie. You know, I mean, after all, what's the point of being in public life? It's not last year or the year before. What have you done for me lately? And that's where they've missed out.
Right. Voters usually don't turn out to vote to say thank you for what you've done. They want to see what you're going to do in the future.
Right.
But it's true that Republicans got a lot of votes because Republicans did seem to care under Trump about the economy, about those cultural issues. And so the more that Trump and other Republicans can get back to what's happening on the home front and focus on those issues and less on what's happening abroad, that will also be very important for the midterm.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, one thing, we don't have time. We're going to go through it in the rest of the show. The economy is booming. Manufacturing is booming. Construction is booming. And these jobs are paying huge wages, way above the inflation rate. So there's that. And that should bring a lot of votes to the GOP if they message it properly. That's my biggest worry. Anyway, Reince Priebus, thank you. And Mollie Hemingway, we appreciate it very much.